Excuse me. Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Today we're going to do another trade review, and this one is going to be Sandman, Preludes and Nocturnes, written by Neil Gaiman, and the art is by Sam Keith, Mike Dridgenberg, and Malcolm Jones the third. Okay, so Sandman grew. Oh, and the covers, I should say, are by Dave McKeon. Sandman grew from a pitch that Neil Gaiman submitted to DC Comics for an updating of the 70s Sandman superhero character by Jack Kirby, which itself was kind of a loose reboot of or a loose revamp of an older character. But editor Karen Berger came back to Neil Gaiman a little bit down the road and asked that he come up with an all-new character with the same name. So this character here is called Dream. He's also called Morpheus, and he's the Lord of Dreams. He rules over an otherworldly realm called the Dreaming, which is the source of dreams and storytelling. He's one of a group of beings called the Endless. They're not all introduced here in this trade, but they seem to be cosmic beings that represent various concepts related to existence. So we have dream, death, desire, destruction, so on and so forth. Although he's loosely connected to the golden age of pulp superhero from the 40s and like I said before, the 70s superhero character as well. They all share the same name. Sandman, although he's very rarely called that, he mostly functions in the genres of like horror, fantasy, and folklore. So now Neil Gaiman has done many works for Marvel and DC and other publishers that have gotten, a lot of critical acclaim, including things like Black Orchid, Mr. Punch, Books of Magic, Miracle Man, Marvel 1620, and the Eternals. He's also written novels and children's books. Some have been adapted to movies and TV series. These are things like Caroline, American Gods, and Neverwhere. Artist Sam Keith has done work for Marvel and DC as well as various independent publishers. He's probably best known for his creation The Max, which was a short-lived animated series on MTV. And Mark Dridgenberg's done a lot of work in indie comics. He's probably best known for his work here. Okay, so Sandman for a while was a good seller for DC Comics and was the centerpiece of their Vertical line of comics. The Vertical line started it started basically due to the success of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, Mike Grell's Green Arrow, and a few other titles. Basically, DC saw the rise in popularity of comics aimed at a mature audience and decided to create a separate line of comics to attract those readers. Vertical was quite successful in gaining more college age, and female readers to mainstream comics. Vertical Line also helped establish the market for collected trades. Sandman as a title has won several awards, including Eisner's, Fantasy Awards, and Hugo's. And I just wanted to point out, before we get into it, how they really made a concerted effort to make the Vertical comics look very different than their mainstream superhero comics. You have these painted covers, the cover design would be different. You'd have this. A lot of times the art will look kind of muted or abstract or just designed. Can you see that? I'm trying to get rid of this glare. Let's try this. Dude, this is a bad idea. But you'd have these, very different color schemes and things like that. Just whatever it took to take it out of that realm of, Superman, Batman, what have you. Okay, so the story begins with a cult trying to raise the spirit of death. They make a mistake and raise Dream instead. They capture him and they leave him in prison for roughly 70-ish years or so. He escapes and attempts to regain his position as Lord of Dreams. Part of his journey is regaining some lost artifacts, and interestingly enough, Dream does meet some characters from the main DC universe. The stories here detail Dream slash Morpheus' quest and expresses the power. Wait, quest and express with the power and expresses the power of dreams and storytelling. Yeah, I wrote that line wrong. So, their power to provide hope as well as their power to provide tar. Dream's other name is Morpheus. Morpheus is the Greek god of sleep and dreams who appears to men in human form in their dreams. In later Sandman stories, Dream appears to other characters in the form of that particular protagonist. And of course, he's also the name of Lawrence Fishburne's character in the Matrix movies, and who encourages Neo to wake up from the computer sleep that Neo was in. This trade also explores, finding meaning and purpose in one's life, I think. Dream, as well as other characters, wrestle with self-doubt and existentialism. So now, while it is a adventure that centers on the supernatural, the tone shifts a couple times from frightening to comical to bittersweet. It's interesting that the story that takes place in literal hell is a lighthearted and humorous tale, and the scariest story takes place in the mundane setting of a family diner or a 24-hour diner. So, just to show you some of the art. we start with we start here, and it's kind of, if you're familiar with 70s horror comics, Sam Keith's layout and figure work and design and stuff kind of has a Bernie Wrightson quality to it. And the first story, we see all kinds of spooky goings on here, and it cuts back and forth. Excuse me. Oh, Jesus Christ. We see the cult. We also see the story jumping back and forth to other people. Here's Dream. Sleep of the Just. Anyway, we cut back and forth to various people at various times, falling asleep, and there's really odd things happening. Okay. Just to jump ahead. Here he is after he's escaped. Here we see, I don't think I'm giving too much away. We see a couple of characters here. It doesn't, if you don't know who they are, that's fine. But the guy with the weird haircut and the other guy in the background, these were the hosts of a couple of horror mystery comics that DC used to put out during the 70s called House of Secret and House of Mystery. Here's John Constantine. It's another pretty popular DC horror character. This is actually kind of, let's see here. This is kind of funny. This cover here, if anybody's familiar with a comic book called Planetary, that was written by Warren Ellis, and it was drawn by Sean Cassidy during the early 2000s. They actually parody kind of the vertical titles in one of their issues, and that particular oh Jesus Christ. And anyway, that particular issue, a character very much like John Constantine has died, and all these kind of vertical-esque type characters again attend his funeral, and the cover to that particular issue is pretty much a parody of this cover here. So I think that's pretty funny. Uh, Other things here, without giving too much away. Here's a kind of gruesome scene here. Let's see here. Here, the last story, which is reprinted here, but I also believe it's also reprinted in A Doll's House, which might be the second volume. No, it has to be the second volume. We meet Dream Sister Death, and she's another one of the Endless. Um, what else can I show you without giving too much away? Yeah, there's some more crazy art here. All right. Okay, that's pretty much that's enough for right now. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away here. Okay, so for what it's worth, a live action version of Sandman has been in and out of development since the 90s. The rumors I've read is that a few of the scripts were actually really bad. So it hasn't been made yet. So, who knows? Maybe someday we'll get to see it. Maybe we won't, but whatever. I think I know. Um, Neil Gaiman is pretty protective of the property, so we'll see what happens. He doesn't want it to be done unless people do it right. So okay, so just to wrap up, Preludes and Nocturnes is a fascinating trade and a nice introduction to the Sandman character. The stories here kind of were published in single issues, so they work as like 1 and 2 part stories, but they do add up to a larger whole. This collection blends stories of terror, dark humor, fantasy, and again, look for cameos for some of DC's old horror comics host John Cassattini. Oh, and also, and I didn't show you this, but there's a couple of Justice League members in this comic book as well. So okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Stay safe. Oh.